ahead of time identified all the booths, exactly where they're gonna go based on your category of service, also based on requests that you made, you know, you need to sit on the end because you have wheelchairs with you or whatnot. That will all be taken into account and made into a final floor plan. Is if you get there and you have that, oh, but I wanted to sit by my friends over there, and you move your booth number to somewhere else, you have already changed what the actual map is that has already been printed for the 900 veterans that are coming the next that day, okay? So we don't want you to do that because it's already overwhelming enough for the volunteers and the veterans to figure out booths, and I don't know which one it is that I'm looking for. So that's why we put booth numbers on each booth and on the map. So the moment you move it out of order, everybody else is now moving out of order, okay? So please stick with the booth number we give you. And then this is the other thing that happens. So on Tuesday, you come and you set up and you put your tablecloth out and your balloons and your candy dish and whatever, and then your booth number was underneath the tablecloth. So we want you to set up your booth, but move your booth number back to the top of your, where it was when you got there. And then in the evening, what you don't know is that you guys leave and our staff stays, and we go back and we look through all the booths and make sure the booth number is sitting on the same corner of every booth, and we duct tape it there so that we're just, as you can hopefully see, we're just trying to make this easy for veterans to find what they're looking for. So please don't take, this happened too, you took your booth number home, like, oh cool, I don't remember, I was A1. You didn't come back with it the next day. So leave it there on top of your tablecloth so that we're not having to rummage for it, and we will put it out for you after everybody has set up. Also on your booth, you will be receiving, oh, it's later on. We're going to be receiving a provider packet, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, and then we want you to label your items. Some of you bring, like I mentioned, a candy dish or brochure stands maybe, or pop-up banner stands. You know, sometimes those are easy to identify if your agency name is on it, but sometimes it's not, right? So, and remember that there's lots of other providers who have like type things as you. So it does behoove you to label your items so that when it's time to tear down, it's easy for you to get them, take the right things home. And then sometimes people leave things because you forgot to pack it up, and then our staff has to figure out who to get it back to. So it helps us if you label your items. The other thing is we encourage you to use signage at your booth. So if you're a booth, you know, obviously you'll be listed on the map, your booth number will be on there, your agency name, and a very short blurb about what you do is even given to the veterans. But sometimes still, that's not enough to indicate what you do. So that's our agency. That said you are a homeless veteran who's never interacted with us before, you may not know what U.S.VETS has to offer. So our banner should say housing, employment, you know, outreach services, that type of rental assistance, those types of, that type of signage is always more helpful to the veterans to understand what you offer, and they're more likely to come to your booth if they understand that, because it can be a very humbling experience to say, right, how can you help me? So, more information they can give that night, the 14th, and there will be security on the 15th and Metro. However, we don't ask you to leave your valuables, so if you're using a computer, don't leave that. If you have valuable things that you're going to be giving out that you feel like you just want to come back in with the next day, do that instead of leaving it, okay? Next slide. Okay, so the run of show. And, well, 6 a.m., our stand-down staff will be arriving. 6:30, no earlier than 6:30, providers and volunteers can check in. That gives us time to set up the computers and everything so that you can check in. And then once you check in, we do require or invite everybody to attend the pre-event rally and the opening ceremony on the stage. Those of you, how many people have been to the stand down before? Oh my gosh, you guys know this stuff. Good. Train the neighbor, right? But that's a couple things have changed, but ceremony is in the front of the room, yeah? This year it's in the middle, so that everybody is equidistant. So that'll be good. Middle, so you guys don't have to walk as far from check-in, but come to the stage at 7:30. That's where we'll be doing the national anthem, the colors, and then we'll be getting everybody pumped up for all the difference we're going to make for, and we're going to make a couple announcements just to refresh on items that you guys will need to know. Okay, and then at 9 o'clock, You know, maybe, I don't know, your agency is thinking about learning about the other services in town and you want to just take, so busy just at your booth, you don't know what, or how inside to the stand down. If your ED or your board at your booth, then at the front doors, we open the doors at 8 o'clock as we promised. Welcoming the veterans to the stand. Resume assistance and meeting one-on-one with the vet out there. What's going to be going on here is they're going to be assigned. Line of 150 other agencies to get your lunch. Volunteers will be coming around and serving you at your booth. Okay, so you will get a ticket. However, we'll talk about that in a second. You'll just deposit it when they come and deliver your food to your booth. You don't have to stand. And then volunteers will be an hour break, and then our staff, our volunteers who are serving, the providers will ask you that too, and we can bring it to you. But for the most part, we do want you to take your break and go ahead into the volunteer area as long as you're not leaving your spot unmanned or leaving it to take a break without letting your lead know that you'll be leaving so that we can fill that spot while you take your break. And then at 5 o'clock, services will end. And normally at this point, I say, and then we'll be back tomorrow morning, right? But this year, we've taken it to one day of impactful services. So 5 o'clock we're ending, which means that we will do the wrap-up announcements at 5 o'clock back on the stage in the center of the hall. So talk about our preliminary outcomes. We'll know already by then how many we've seen, how many have been housed up until that point, how many hopefully have been employed. All of that good stuff we'll be sharing with you all at the stage. And we're also going to be asking you to submit you anymore. Circumstance prior to 5 p.m. And a veteran enters at 4:45 because the flyer said 8 to 5. Maybe you get there and the boat has already been torn down because somebody felt it got slow and so they left early. And I know it may, and hopefully we'll be so efficient that it will feel like that, right? Or hopefully someday there's not that many homeless veterans to serve because we have decreased homelessness in Las Vegas. So by the end of the afternoon, you're feeling like and do that for us. They'll be anonymous, but your information is valued and your feedback. Volunteers will be asked to do the same thing at checkout. When you check out, volunteers being asked to complete, and that's the most important feedback we'll get. They'll be asked to complete satisfaction surveys so they can let us know what strengths we had, what improvements we should make, what things we didn't think of. Give you an example, one year a veteran said, in the shoe section of the stand-down store next time. And we never thought of that. Like, when you go buy shoes, you need to sit down, right? You try your shoes on. So we, stand-down store will have a chair in the shoe section this year, thanks to veterans who have requested that. So it's an example of the things we like to hear in the surveys that teach us every year. Okay, we talked about the ceremony, the opening ceremony, and that's it. 7:30 on the stage, and then VIP tours. We talked about that already. So go ahead and skip that. Next. Okay. Instructions. So service provider, remember that you guys are going to be, service provider means you're sitting at a booth offering a service. A volunteer means you're a volunteer at large and Melissa and Candace can assign you anywhere to do the jobs that are needed on the floor, right? That's the difference. But the entrance is the same. So please go, if you're a provider, with our provider registration folks, you can remember as by your agency name and then by your personal name. We are asking providers to just wear your agency shirts because stand-down shirts will be only provided to volunteers. Okay, a couple reasons why we do that. It's much easier for us to know who are the volunteers at large duty if they're wearing the t-shirt, and then agency providers, we know who you are because you've got your own shirts and your non-volunteer shirt on and you're running your booth. Okay, so that's the delineation. But this year, because some of you guys might still like a souvenir, or you maybe don't have an agency shirt because maybe your service that you're providing, doesn't mean that you have a uniform, we do have, for the first time, commemorative stand-down gear. So we will be asking for donations for those, a minimum donation for the t-shirts that will have a special stand-up logo, and it'll be a different color, a popular color. So we do invite you to purchase that if you'd like to. There will be it's our first time doing it, so there won't be enough for everyone because we don't know if it's that hot, really, but we will have enough where it's a good sample size. But I guess maybe just if you would be interested as a service provider for a commemorative stand-down shirt, just raise your hand just so Kalana can see how many. Oh, that's lovely. I can even tell you what the minimum donation was. Well, I'll be changing that tonight. Okay. Good. So get that? Okay. We'll let that sink in for a minute. Okay. Got t-shirts. Okay. So now, please, providers, do not give our provider registration folks a hard time because you're not getting a t-shirt. You have been duly warned. It does help the flow of the event, but now we thought of another way because I know a lot of you are like, I really want to show that I was here. Well, now you have a way without having to hustle over at the volunteer table. Come on, what can I get for that volunteer t-shirt? Okay, you don't have to do that because there's commemorative shirts available. Okay, so again, on 3/14, you'll be signing in, receiving your wristband, and you'll proceed to set up your booth on the 15th. You'll sign in for the day. You'll show your wristband if you already got on the 14th. So you're getting to cut down your time at the front if you checked in on the 14th. So there's my plug again. Do that early and you'll be able to move faster through the check-in process in the morning, okay? You'll also get your meal ticket and you'll proceed to your booth. And however, if you didn't check in the previous day, then you have to go through just a little bit longer of a process to get all of the stuff that you need. Packet, I meant to say this, move this to the other slide, but provider packets will also be on your table on the 14th. And inside your provider packet, you'll have a tracking sheet, which we're going to cover. You'll have a list of all the services in that, because sometimes somebody comes to you and says, where's 3 Square with their food stamps, right? And you don't know. You just know we give you that so that you can also help direct if you need to. You'll get a map of the event and you'll get your provider certificate. So your agency gets a frameable certificate that shows that you were there and thanking you for your service. It's fun sometimes I come to your agencies and I see our certificates on your wall. That's nice. So we'll be providing that. So that'll be in your packet already, okay? I have to turn them on. I actually cannot see my own slide. And a lot of it's right here too. So, okay. Okay, so some more specific instructions, okay? Providers checking in, checking badges. So this is a way that we have designed, every veteran gets an unduplicated number on their badge, okay? And so they get that at the beginning. So when they come to your booth, you're gonna see that they have a badge number, and that helps you in 2 ways. One, there will be a tracking sheet, which is the next bullet point. Tracking sheet in your packet, take that out of your packet, you'll need to use it. And whenever a veteran comes to your booth, check their badge number, and then we just ask you to make a check mark next to that person's badge number on your tracking sheet, okay? Tracking sheet will have 1,200 numbers on it, 1 through 1,200, booth, and you see his badge number 3, and you just check off number 3 on your tracking sheet. And what does that do? That tells us 2 things. One, if Joe comes back later on and you only brought enough to give away 1 item of what you have to the veterans, and they come back later on, and Joe comes back to your booth, and you go, oh, Joe, nice to meet you, badge number 3. And you go, oh, I already checked out badge number 3, which indicates you already gave Joe that handout, okay? So you would probably maybe say at that time, I'm sorry, Joe, right now we only have enough for 1 for everybody. If you want today, if you want to come back at the end and we have any extra, I'm happy to give you 1, but for right now, I can only give you the 1 that you already have, okay? We did that because some of you guys who are handing out things and you've already made packages and stuff. I know you're only probably bringing 900 or so, and so you don't have maybe enough to give more than 1. Now, those of you who are giving information, well, you know, information is power, so keep on giving out the information, but still check their badge number, okay? The second thing it tells us that as long as you're doing this diligently throughout the day and checking off every badge number that comes to your booth, at the end of the day, you can count up all your check marks and you can tell us how many people came to your booth. And that's probably good information for you to take back with you, right? Congressional delegation at the end of the day will know we helped 500 people that came to our booth, or we helped 50 people that came to our booth. Okay, and that's the way you just add up all the check marks throughout the day. And that's our quick way of helping us get a count. And then, most important, you leave that sheet with us. Don't take it with you so that we can keep that information. And we do actually analyze it every year to see how well the services went and how many people were getting those services, okay? If a veteran, that's also a point of engagement. If you're talking to a veteran at your booth and they do not have a badge, that's your indicator somehow the veteran did not go through the intake process. Okay, this is really important for us, and you guys can help us with this. It's pretty tight in terms of how the flow goes. That doesn't actually happen often, but there are a couple places where somebody might be able to come in without going through the intake process. Now, we want to serve them still, but we do want to capture data from them. One, we want to count them, because everybody that goes through the intake process when they enter sits down at a computer with a volunteer who takes a small demographic and a needs assessment, if you will, of what they're there for, but also what led them to their situation, what era did they serve in, what age, what's their discharge, do they have any legal issues, medical issues, do they need to look for a job today? Those help us when our veteran assistant is taking them all over to find the services. But we don't get that information unless they go through the intake process at their correct entrance, right? So, and get their badge. And everybody that sits through that intake then is counted as a veteran served. So that's where our count comes from. We'll be projecting it on the big screen in the front of the room. And so you'll see in real time how many we've served throughout the day so that you guys know how amazing you're doing in serving hundreds of veterans. But unless they sit through that intake process, they don't get to be counted, right? So your indicator, they didn't go through intake. So what happens at that point? If they don't have a volunteer assistant, or somebody nearby, then we do ask area. We won't even make that won't happen. They're too distracted with all the other good things that they're going to pass by, right? So please bring them over to the intake area if that happens. Okay, tracking sheet we talked about. Guests should also be tracked on the same form. So some of the veterans will come with their family members, and they'll have a guest back on the same section for guest numbers. You can track the guest number also. That way we know how many veterans came and how many guests you served. We talked about turning. Okay, we talked about that we'll ask online service. Oh, okay. So as a and remember the veteran assistant sat with them and asked them which booths do you want to go to, all of them, and then they can go to all the rest of them if they want to go to also. But at a minimum, especially if they said I need legal, dental, and employment, we want to make sure employment, right? So we've encouraged the veteran booth number whatever be 4 for legal assistance, and when they come to you, they will likely ask you, can you sign off my checklist so that we show that we got it done? Or they don't ask you and you go, do you have a checklist? I can sign off for you. Why we do that is so that 2 things. One, we realized it was more engaging for the providers to really facilitate that process. Give the veterans, go talk to the providers, have them sign off. And somebody told me who had been with us for many years until when we implemented this, she had been at the stand and she was like, not until you did that did I feel really productive by being here. More people were coming to my table because we were telling them you have to get your signature, and because we tell them if they get signatures for everything that your veteran assistant checked off that you needed, at the end of the day, list, and if you got all of that completed, we have a bus pass as your incentive. I know. So, okay, so bus passes are important, right? And sometimes it feels like, why are you gonna give an incentive for somebody to go get all the services they need? Well, because sometimes it's hard to be a person in need and know how to find all these booths and also be the one saying, yeah, please. So that's our facilitated way of giving them an incentive to go ahead. We encourage you to go to those booth providers. Don't worry. They will help you out and they'll even sign your checklist. And at the end of the day, Heidi, our student, will be checking the checklist upon checkout. And if there's another engagement period there. She looks at their checklist and she sees you were here to see legal, dental, and employment, and we only got you to legal. And she's going to say, how can we help you get the dental service that you need employment service that you need. And they maybe said, well, it took too long at legal. I feel like I don't have enough time to go to that. And she's going to say, I'm going to get you a volunteer right now. Let's take you over there and see what we can do for you, right? We want to make sure they're getting what they came for. Point. So please do sign off on their checklist when they come to your booth. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the tracking sheet is going to look just like this. I talked about you're going to get a big long sheet of a bunch of numbers. That's literally what it's going to be. I keep every year I keep thinking of how do I make this more tech savvy. I think that's it. Just give them a bunch of numbers and then they'll check mark it. Someday, you know, we'll have barcodes on their badge and you guys can just scan it. But I know, right? That would be so cool, but I don't know how to do that. So for right now, you get an Excel sheet. It's got a bunch of numbers and you just check mark. So you see that veteran number 1, 8, 19, 14, 12, the ones with check marks are the ones that came to this booth. And at the end of the day, the person tallied it out for me and said 11 veterans came to the booth. Simple as that. Okay? The hardest part to getting this data is you guys actually doing it. So sometimes, like half the day has gone by and a provider goes, how do I track the data? And we're like, it's 12. What have you been doing for the last 4 hours? I'm so sorry. You didn't know. They didn't know their tracking sheet was in the packet. So don't forget to open your packet when you see it at your booth. It is in there. And that start tracking from the moment we let veterans in the room, okay? Now, so that everybody can track outputs, means our head count, check marks. But certain providers are asked to also track your outcomes and report them to us so that we can say at the end of the stand down, this many people were served and this many got this X outcome. For instance, if you're in housing, we want to say 100 people were served in the housing section and 50 of them were placed into housing. Employment, same thing, right? So housing, employment, legal, medical, vision, and dental providers. One of you guys, we're asking you to not just tell us how many people came to your booth, but how many got outcomes. So how many were placed in housing? How many were employed? How many got their warrants quashed? And you'll see that just in a second, what's going to look like. And we'll also be celebrating those housing placements and employment placements. So in addition to just reporting how many veterans have come into the hall, into the stand down, we'll also be reporting when a veteran is housed. You'll hear us on the stage say, down, right? Those of you guys who've been here like, oh yeah, I would hear that all. That sounds just like what she's going to say. Attention, stand down. A homeless veteran has been placed into housing. Let's welcome the landlord into housing, and everybody can clap. We always ask Joe first if they're comfortable doing that, of course. And most of them are like, yeah, come on, let's go. So they'll come to the stage and we'll celebrate them, and we have a certificate for them. We give them a T-shirt, and we welcome them, and you know, we just make it a very welcoming experience for them to enter into their new housing. We're going to do the same with veterans who get a job, because we should celebrate those things when our community makes that happen for our heroes, right? So we'll be doing that together on the stage. Now, housing and employers, when you place a veteran into housing and you place a veteran into employment, please do let the leads know in your section. You'll come to know who that is because they'll be with you a lot throughout the day. Rashida is the lead for employment, and Kimmy is the lead for housing. Oh, she's in the room. She's outside. Okay, so, but you'll know them in your sections. And so introduce them, let them know, and she will go get the microphone, and then we'll do the celebration on the stage, okay? And also take a note, they'll also be asking you that veteran's name and some other information, so for tracking purposes, so that we can follow up with them and see how they're doing afterwards. So they'll get all that as long as you let them know it's happening. Rashida and Kimmy will get the information that they need from you. Any questions about that so far? Okay, next slide. So the outcomes portion, only for housing, employment, legal, medical, dental, or vision will you have a little bit more to report on your outcome sheet. Okay, so you'll tell me how many visited your booth, how many were housed, for instance, or how many got a future housing plan, or how many veterans in the employment section visited, how many got hired, how many scheduled interviews, etc. So only through those providers do you need to make sure you do that portion, but please do that. That's the meat of what we're doing, so we can celebrate and say what we were able to accomplish at Stand Down. Okay? Next slide. Okay, so for those of you who are not service providers but volunteers, you will check in at the volunteer table for your assignment, and the volunteer coordinators will let you know what your assignment is and head you over in that direction. You'll get your T-shirt, and that's only on event day. So setup day, we won't be giving out T-shirts, just on event day. Okay. You'll get a volunteer wristband, so that way when you go in and out, you just have to show your wristband so that they know that you've already checked in. Remember, all morning volunteers to come to the rally also. When you check out, sign out on the computers, the same place you checked in. Because volunteers sign in and out on the computers, we get a timestamp for you. That's how we know at the end of Stand Down, we can say volunteers contributed 5,381 hours of service. only if you're checking in and also out, right? Okay, and then we'll ask volunteers to complete a survey online, and then you'll get your you'll be able to pick up your recognition certificate at checkout as well, so that you don't have to. We don't want you to fold it. It's all pretty. It's like frameable, so you can just get it at the end. That way you don't have to take it to your station and have it with you all day. So pick up your certificates at the end during checkout. Meals. Let's talk about meals on event day. You guys are doing a great job sitting with me. Thank you. Breakfast. So breakfast this year will be provided early in the morning for those who are serving all day or for a morning shift. That's for volunteers and providers, okay? So there will be coffee and pastries near the check-in station while supplies last. So that won't be out all day. So just while supplies last for the morning shift or for people who are staying all day. And you're gonna get a breakfast ticket when you check in that's gonna say breakfast this year, because we needed to pay more attention to how many meals we needed and give a more exact count. And the shifts this year are a little bit different. So if you're staying for a morning shift, you're entitled to breakfast. If you're coming for an afternoon shift, you're entitled to lunch. And if you're staying all day, you're entitled to both breakfast and lunch. That means that is that if you signed up only for the morning, we didn't account for you to stay and eat lunch, okay? But the lunch shift ends prior to lunch anyway, so I know most of you who had to sign up only have to get somewhere, and we'll be leaving before lunch is served. But that's why the ticket will be different this year when you get it, okay? Providers, as I said, well, providers and volunteers will be getting boxed lunches, so that'll be served in the manner we talked about already. Deposit your ticket. Now, at a couple planning meetings ago, before we had reached our fundraising goal, somebody said, you know, you should have a bucket for donations. I'll pay you for my lunch. I'll give you a donation to the stand down for the lunch that you're providing. That was a nice offer. So we're not mandating anybody to pay for your lunch, but if you'd like to make a donation, we'll keep it in the stand down fund. So the folks that are at the lunch lines will also have a bucket they can deposit a donation if you want to at that time. Okay. Lunch starts at 12 o'clock. Remember, providers will be served at your booths and volunteer lunch in the break area. Next slide. Media. So media will be there. We hope that they will be covering our good news stories, and we encourage you. Sometimes they just make their way around and they're looking for somebody to interview about a success that they've witnessed at stand-up. We encourage you to do that if you have a success story. Please do volunteer to share what you were able to help accomplish for veterans. We let veterans at the time of intake know that media will be there, so that doesn't stay out of the way of photographers, or let us know. We'll also be on social media because we are just that savvy. Thanks to Kalanda, our co-chair. She'll be doing Facebook Live. We'll be on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, as we should be doing live. And that will all be going on, and we hope that you're comfortable. But if you're not comfortable, because there's at the stand down, there could be up to 1,200 people on the floor. It will be very hard for us to know with being filmed or photographed. So we're asking you at check-in this year to just go ahead and read the media statement, sign in, and we ask you guys, we do have to put the responsibility on you that if you don't feel comfortable being in the limelight or in photos or videos, just be mindful of the cameras and simply step out of that time, simply because it's too hard for us to know who said, no, I'm not comfortable, right? There's 1,200 of you guys who came through, so we didn't know which one of you said, no, I don't want to be on Facebook Live. Kalanda's feeling won't be hurt if you tell her, I'm not comfortable being on Facebook Live, right? So just let her know, but we also are going to be putting that new statement when you check in, that you'll be consenting to participate if you agree, or remove yourself from any areas during photography. Way to get here. Some have mental illness, some are just going. Some will not maybe be as easy to work with as expect. And so let's just try our best to help them get what they need. If you're having any problems and need assistance, Metro will be there doing courtesy patrol. We'll have courtesy patrol in orange shirts. Our staff will be there in different colored shirts, in purple shirts and camel shirts, so we can help to happen. That happens maybe once a year, so 1 out of 900 people, but a difficult client comes up is not too bad, and we'll help you guys navigate those situations. But try to make it very welcoming. Although I will say, you guys are great at this. You guys are so welcoming. Every year on the veteran satisfaction survey, we ask, you know, what's the stand down, and they would say all the love that I felt by everybody that was there. You guys make it such a great experience for them, but just as a reminder, okay? That's why we put that on there. And then we'll have a concierge. She'll have a desk at the stage, Colleen will, which will also roam around to make sure everybody has what they need. You know, you're looking for a bottle of water and you can't leave your booth, for instance. Colleen is the one who's going to make that happen. She's super peppy and she's always in the room.
Yeah.
There she is. So that's why we assigned her that, right, Colleen? Okay. Yeah, that's not a peppy. Resources, just so that in case there's anything that happens overnight and they don't make it. And okay, yeah, I'm going to do this half of the room first and make my way around. So yes, in the back.
If you have a provider that has different services,
Yes, every booth, even if you're the same agency, but you have two separate booths will get their own provider pack and their own tracking sheet. Twice for both services. Okay. Okay. Great.
If we have multiple providers coming in, is the thing supposed to be on the check?
All the people that were coming, so they just need to check in when they get there. Yes, everybody that checks in before the lunch period will get
So the orange tag.
Yes.
Are veterans that are not homeless also welcome, and if so,
Yes.
what kind of tag do they have?
Oh, yes, sorry, I forgot to cover all the colors. Yes, we have different colors for depending on the veterans' housing situation. So we heard red and orange are for homeless, green is if they're living in transitional housing, and blue is if they're in their own housing. Thank you, I forgot to mention that, so thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, you are keeping me on my toes.
The information you just provided and replay in PowerPoint, is that going to be available next week?
Yes, so check us out. We have been recording this and on Google Hangout, and we will be sending it to everybody that registered, going out to everybody and post it on social media.
It automatically posts on.
Oh, it's automatically posting on social media.
Once it's done.
Once it's done. So you can also get on our Facebook at U.S.VETS Las Vegas, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram, and you will automatically get the link. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So the information that will be provided within our package,
Mhm.
and to say when something happens to be missing, will our lead will be able to go through for anything that
Yes.
we don't.
Yep. So, sorry. So the question is, if it's packet or you need something that we talked about, it's not there, you have a couple different options that you can ask. Definitely your lead in your section in the purple shirt. Those of us that are wearing camo will be working the floor and will be also available. And then Colleen, our roaming concierge, will also be available. You can pull any one of us and we'll go get you the information that you need. Try to make ourselves very present. It's funny, we wear camo, the chairs, and somebody said to me, isn't it ironic you're wearing camo, but you're definitely not hidden? Everybody's like looking for you. Okay, next, yes.
I just want to confirm, providers need to set up the day before, and not every person who's coming needs to be present on that day.
Correct, yes. Providers are, you're not required to check in the day before. It just makes your process easier the next day. But you're encouraged to check in on the 14th, but not everybody who's gonna serve at your booth has to check in. Just one for the agency to set up your booth. Yes, yes, sir.
I want to marry off to the gentleman's question, so that I'll make this clear. Veterans will have designated that, but I think he's also asking those of us that are also veterans that will be working with those, we have a designated color.
No. The question is, will veterans working a booth have a designated color? No, sir.
Because we will be very good. That's one of those questions you say next year.
Okay, well, let me go a step deeper there. So the question is, if you're working a booth and you're a veteran, do you get a color? You only get a color if you're a veteran coming in for services.
Communicate with that veteran, let them know who prior service.
Oh, yes, please, yes. If you're a fellow veteran, do make that connection. But we're not needing to know what your current housing situation is because you're working the booth. But we do need to know the veteran who's been being served, what their current housing situation is.
This point is extremely important. Veterans identifies another veteran much easier than a non-veteran.
Absolutely.
So I think there should be some identification for veterans what's in the group.
Okay, well, I encourage you to do this. Everybody, so suggestion is identify if you are a booth provider and a veteran. That could be a very good engagement tool working with another veteran. We agree. So when you come in and check in, so where's Sarah, Melissa? When you come in, we're also going to have you fill out our name tag. Go ahead and write Joe, U.S. Navy on there, and then that can be your identifier. So Melissa, Candace, Sarah, Kim, you guys remember to encourage them when they're checking in to write their branch of service on their name tags. For that suggestion. Other questions? And thank you both for your service and your suggestions. Yes, in the back. question is there any funding for housing available? And basic answer is yes. To enter housing. I said because so we looked at the entry numbers, and while we did in one day versus doing yeah, so this is a pilot year, so we're going to see how that goes. Yeah, we'll do the best job this year is that, you can still come, make it, some veterans let us know. We could still come the second day, so we waited. But now this way we'll be pitching it that come today before 5. So we think we can still do it. Everybody?
Right.
Yeah. Other questions? These are good ones. That's it?
Karen had talked about valuables, but I think you already talked about that.
Yes.
So as far as donation, like what's the biggest need right now? Clothes, shoes, food?
Yes. We're taking all of that. What's the biggest need in the stand down store right now? Food? Non-perishable food. Okay, that's a good question. So I guess I can say this, because if it's non-perishable food, it doesn't have to be sized and sorted and checked to be, appropriate for wear. Then if you're coming to set up your booth, I'm going to do this without asking you first, John. If they're coming to set up their booth on the 14th between 3 and 5, can they bring non-perishable food at that time? And just put on a shelf. You see the difference between having to sort it and wash it or whatnot. So non-perishable food, if you'd like to bring it when you set up on the 14th, you can go ahead and do that. Just bring it over to the stand down store, which will already be in the making at that point. I encourage you guys to do that. All right. You guys feel like you got a lot of information today, I hope. And we have a couple other things to do.
Drawing, right?
A drawing, yes.
So this is the biggest donation.
Let's do the other one first.
The regular one?
Yeah, tickets out. If you got a raffle ticket for bringing one of each type of bag, we thank you. And I'll draw a ticket number. Ticket number 684246. 4246. 4246. Oh wait.
Okay. All right, so the larger
One.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't have a voucher. I just have to get
Okay, and the largest donation that we received was from members of Post 10047 via forward so that Kalana can reserve. We don't have your information. Everybody else.
stand down for you.
Yeah.